Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah, and we especially want to wish Governor Tom Wolf a speedy recovery from COVID-19. Now let's get to the subject matter. Let's talk about safe harbor protections for business, and is Trump still trying to flip Pennsylvania? As they say, let's get to it.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Welcome back. Well, joining me to chat about these subjects is Charlie Thompson. He's a reporter with the Patriot News and PennLive. Charlie, let's go to COVID restrictions. It looks like it looks like when we talk about COVID restrictions that given the fact that Governor Wolf now has COVID-19, whether these restrictions, when this airs, they may have, he may have put them in effect as it airs this weekend all over the state. But the problem is, what will happen to businesses and what will that do to the economy? Some way, somehow, there has to be a balance.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously with the record high post-Thanksgiving surge in cases, there's and that starting to manifest itself in hospitals being overstressed in certain parts of the state.
Yeah.
There is mounting pressure on the administration to do some additional mitigation, and they've said that they're not going to do anything that would be sort of like a economy-wide shutdown like was attempted in March and April. But I think what we're going to see is something along the lines of further restrictions on indoor dining, maybe a closure of personal fitness centers and gyms and salons and that sort of thing. More on the hospitality and personal services side, but I can't see them going after the whole retail sector in the Christmas shopping season, right?
Yeah, I mean, every day we read about restaurants, bars, taverns, not just closing temporarily, but closing for good, a huge number of them all over, not just the state, but all over the country.
Right. I mean, the hospitality industry and specifically, dining and bars have really had the hardest go here because they were among the first to take the blow from COVID, and they're probably going to be about the last to fully recover.
All right, look, let's talk about the law and President Trump's campaign. They lost a big case before the United States Supreme Court, which dismissed the case by a congressman from Western Pennsylvania and a guy who wanted to be a congressman, Sean Parnell. But we have Congressman Kelly. That was dismissed with one sentence. Petition denied, right? I think that was the words that Justice Alito used in the decision by the court, if that was a decision. But the fact of the matter is this over now, in Pennsylvania?
Well, I think it, for all intents and purposes, it is. I mean, there's one or two smaller cases that are still bouncing around in the state appellate courts, but they're not of the magnitude that would flip the result. The big play, the last big play, was Representative Mike Kelly's case that you referred to, that tried to say that the law that was passed in 2019 that allowed for no excuse mail-in ballots, no excuse absentee ballots in Pennsylvania was unconstitutional. That case is dead. It's run its course in the Supreme Court. So our election results are going to stand. The only possible wild card is, if you're looking for one, would be the Texas Attorney General has mounted his own case that's headed before the Supreme Court, I believe, with some intervening support from a number of other red states.
Yeah, I think it might be 17 states that have,
and they're basically alleging that it's a similar kind of case, alleging that the procedures in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and one other state that flipped for Trump, I guess it was Georgia, were such that there wasn't a fair election, and that basically denied people in those states the right to a fair presidential election. But you know, legal experts have looked at that case, and they haven't given it much of a chance of going anywhere. So yes, I think we're going to get into our normal electoral college phase and get that done.
Which is December 14th, Monday, just after the show airs. The law all right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about 2 words: transportation, climate, something you know a lot about. We'll be back after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, Charlie Thompson. 2 words: transportation and climate. Why should our viewers take an interest in that?
Well, because we're kind of on the cusp now of Northeastern and Mid-Atlantic governors making a decision about something called the Transportation and Climate Initiative. And that is a multi-state program that would essentially require fuel companies, oil companies that move refined gasoline and diesel and so forth to the pump where we pay for it, to buy a credit for the greenhouse gas emissions, carbon dioxide that fuel emits when it's burned in combustion engines. And the idea there is it's a cap and incent kind of cap and dividend, I guess they call it. The fuel will cost a little bit more, and the idea is that it will incent us to be more economical about our fuel use choices, whether we go to an electronic vehicle or whether we try and go from 3 trips in our car a day to 2 trips in our car a day. And the money, the fuel companies will be buying these credits for the pollution.
Okay.
The proceeds from that will go to the state, and the state will in turn a participating state would be allowed to plow those proceeds into new electronic vehicle charging facilities or mass transit or that.
The money that's raised from it will go towards helping to reduce carbon emissions and other aspects.
Yeah, just a cleaner transportation infrastructure.
Yeah.
And of course, the downside is that all models would suggest that this would be passed on to the consumer at the pump, with over 10 years possibly raising gasoline prices per gallon by anywhere from like 17 cents a gallon to 38 cents a gallon. So a rising gas tax is always something that is very concerning to a lot of people, from trucking companies to anybody that commutes to work.
And it's even heightened now because of COVID-19 and the fact that lots of people have been laid off. Now, employment's getting better in the state and in the nation, there's no doubt about it, but that has to be a factor as well.
So the final program here is due to be released by the end of the year, and about 10 to 12 states in New England and in the Mid-Atlantic will have the decision of whether to join. This is a gubernatorial decision, and Governor Wolf is weighing it. I mean, we've obviously been in on the development of the program. Our state has not committed to it yet, and that's a decision that should be coming by the end of the year.
All right. Well, look, I want to thank you for coming in and for keeping us posted. All right. When we return, Gene Barr from the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry joins me. We have a bunch of important topics. And how about safe harbor protection for businesses? Gene will explain that and more after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
All right, we're going to take up some important topics with Gene Barr. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry and a frequent guest. Hey, before we get to this whole business of safe harbor protections for business, let's talk a bit about COVID restrictions. Now, again, I was talking to Charlie Thompson, but I want to get your view of it, obviously, as a representative of the business community. Point number one, when this airs, Governor Wolf is likely to have announced further restrictions, COVID-19. And again, as I indicated before, we wish him a speedy recovery.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about that. In general, how do you think government should be reacting to this spike up of COVID-19?
Well, it's a great question because we are seeing an increase. And as you note, the governor unfortunately has tested positive, and we certainly wish him well and his family. But I think that what we've got to do is look at where we think we can do the most good. Back in the spring, I think we said we've got to shut this economy down. The governor himself has said he does not favor a shutdown as we did in the spring. So there's a lot of speculation and a lot of rumors about where we go. Restaurants are justifiably concerned about this. But I think that what we need to do is look at what we might actually do that's negative if that happens. For example, if you close restaurants that are practicing masking, sanitizing, and distancing, and people say, I still want to go somewhere and eat with my friends, what are they going to do? They're going to go to a private setting where you have zero control over that. So there's a lot of thought that what you might actually do by closing restaurants is accelerate the spread.
That's a good point, by the way. I've not heard that, but they're going to do it anyway, right?
Let's make sure that things are being done right. Let's make sure that we're looking at data and trying to accumulate where we really think the spread is happening. And what I've heard is it's a lot of the private gatherings that we're seeing. Second, we think that there ought to be an active engagement of the communities that are impacted to make sure that we're doing the right things. That is, what else can we do? And in all honesty, we have got to really enforce this masking mandate. We've got to put some teeth behind it. Law enforcement has got to get there. Right now, all the burden is on the retail community, the business community to make sure this is being done. And it's not right because as we've talked about on this show before, we've had store associates that have been assaulted. We have people completely disregarding. And as we're going to get into with the liability, we're putting those businesses at a tremendous liability in terms of enforcing this masking mandate.
The President-elect Biden has indicated masking could be, a national, he could say, national mandate to.
It's conceivable. But whatever we do now here in Pennsylvania, we've got to put teeth behind this requirement to mask, because what has happened is in a lot of those counties that had very little spread early on, that never caught on. In places like here where we are, Cumberland, Dauphin, in the southeast, southwest, people got used to it. But we had counties up until a few weeks ago that had single-digit totals.
Single digits, yeah.
From all the way back into February and March.
Yeah, no, you make a good point. And, there's a big debate about what the government should be able to do legally in terms of enforcing such restrictions, whether they're violating the constitutional rights. But the other way to think about it is that the government has a responsibility for health and safety of the people, right?
Absolutely.
And that could be paramount in terms of this discussion.
And I understand those concerns. I really do. I don't think any of us enjoy wearing a mask. I'm not met anybody who says I really love wearing masks. Yeah. But at this point, I think it's something
I have it right. I have mine right here.
I got mine too.
And it never goes away, does it? But no, you make a good point. Well, I want to talk about this safe harbor protections for business. First of all, what does that mean?
Okay. And first, I think it's crucial to say this. This is broader and has more application than simply business. What we're saying is this. For those people who are tasked with enforcing mask mandates, keeping themselves, their customers, their employees safe, if you do the right thing, and I emphasize that, if you do the right thing, you should be offered some protections temporarily through this pandemic from lawsuits. We're already seeing the impact of not doing that. I have one member that's been sued more than 36 times already. 36 times. There was a lawsuit that came up the other day, again, just to show you how incredible some of this can be. There was a lawsuit brought against people who sold masks and other personal equipment and charged sales taxes. They interpreted the state law. They were sued for $100 per transaction on top of the reimbursement of the sales tax. So what we're saying is this: temporarily grant safe harbor protections for people who do the right things. That is, you're protected from some of these frivolous lawsuits. And I will tell you, this goes far beyond the typical business. For example, we have higher education, basic education, local governments. I've done a lot of child care seminars in which the child care providers will pop up in the chat and say, thank you for talking about liability protection. It's the one thing that keeps me up at night. So if we can't get child care facilities to reopen and stay open, then working parents have nowhere to take their children. Therefore, employers wind up not having employees able to work. Therefore, the economy stalls.
All right, we're going to run to a break, and you have something here that you really have to explain as judicial hellholes. I love that. I don't know what it means, but you're going to help us out. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
All right, believe it or not, I have no clue what this means, judicial hellholes. That's why we have Gene Barr here. He's going to help us out. All right, Mr. Barr, take it.
Let's touch that. Before we do that, let's close out on liability, though. We talked about all the groups that were part of that. Unfortunately, there was a bill that went in with 75 statewide associations, 80 local chambers of commerce saying, please, Governor Wolf, sign this legislation. He vetoed it. There was one group on the other side, personal injury lawyers. That's it. One group was on the other side. So let's talk a little bit about judicial hellholes. There's a group every year that puts out this update of where liabilities are expanding, which is a detriment to investment and jobs and hits consumers in terms of money, to where there are frivolous lawsuits. And Pennsylvania, unfortunately, has the dubious distinction of having two listings on there, kind of a co-listing. One of them is the Philadelphia Common Pleas system. The second one is the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court, because the State Supreme Court has been expanding liabilities. That is making Pennsylvania less attractive to business, less attractive to jobs, expanding the impact of the legal system on consumers' pocketbooks by all of this, making products and services more expensive, making jobs tougher to come by. Philadelphia Common Pleas Court has been notorious for years for being this incredible plaintiffs-friendly place, to the extent that lawyers know this. The plaintiffs' lawyers know this. They will move cases from not only other parts of Pennsylvania, but bring cases from other states and file and seek some way, some little tie of bringing them back to Philadelphia to have the cases adjudicated there. Yeah. And so Pennsylvania's gotten this reputation, unfortunately, with the dual distinctions of both Philadelphia Common Pleas and the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court.
All right, now, in judicial reform, what would you recommend?
Well, we have been supporters of merit selection. We just don't think that the best way of getting an impartial jurist is through the current system, in which they're required to run statewide, somehow raise money, et cetera. And look, let's be honest, there is no system that's immune from politics, because the people who say they don't like merit selection will say we still have to be, and I understand that, but we still think that having some type of panel that has various interests represented on it, selecting and recommending the jurists that they think are best for appellate cases, so this would be Commonwealth, Superior, and Supreme, is the best manner.
Yeah, one of the things that's, first of all, when polls have been done over the years, and you know that people don't want to give up the right to pick particularly, as you pointed out, the appellate courts, where the voters actually know very precious little about these candidates, because they don't have the resources to go out and run statewide campaigns using purchased ads on television and radio and other media forms. But the fact of the matter is that's hard to get through legislatively. In other words, to get rid of the election of appeals court juris.
Correct.
And go to some kind of appointed merit system.
We actually have to change Pennsylvania's constitution, which is, of course, a very rigorous process, has to pass through 2 consecutive sessions of the legislature, go on the ballot. We've not been able to get through that. Again, the trial bar has been opposing that for many years.
All right, I'm going to switch topics with you. We're going to come up on extremely important elections in 2022, and you know when those campaigns start.
Now, they've already started.
Yeah, I got
They've
it.
already started.
But they'll be full bore ahead
They will.
in January. Now listen to this. For the first time in something like 40 years, we have an open governor's race, meaning Governor Wolf is term limited, and we have Senator Toomey who said, I'm done
Correct.
at the end of this year. And so we have governor's race, Senate race, no incumbent, and a field as wide as long as a football field, right?
Yes.
So how's this all, I'm asking you a tough question, I know. How's this all going to play out?
Well, usually a lot of this jockeying, as you know, would start at PA Society, which we didn't have this year. So
Right.
It might be delayed a little, although we're already hearing from people, and of course everyone, as you know, in this business, people love to speculate and pass rumors about who might be in or who might not be in. I would think that field is still developing on both the Republican and Democrat side, and for the U.S. Senate seat as well as governor. So I think you're going to see a lot of people who will maybe wait and see, well, is so-and-so going to go for Senate, so I'll go for governor?
I got
or
it.
so-and-so might go for governor, I'll go for Senate.
Yeah.
It will be extremely interesting to see. And
Would it surprise you if we have 8, 9, 10 candidates, primary candidates for both of these offices? Would that shock you?
I think that's a little high, because I think that each party might try and winnow that down a little bit, I would think. Because again, to go to your point, that's a lot of candidates. If you have 8, 9, 10 on each side, that's basically 40 people who have indicated an interest in those positions. That's a lot of money to be raised. And I think what you're going to see is you're going to see people who are who might want a big primary, who are hoping for that Trump constituency, because that is, from the Republican side certainly, the most solid pluralism that you see there. And so it will be interesting to see who's in, how many sitting officials, whether or not it will attract somebody from outside the current political system, say someone who's in business, or it will be, the next few months are going to be interesting as these names further develop.
It's a full employment bill for people who cover politics.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, look, thanks for coming in.
Of course.
All right.
Anytime.
We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, you stay well.